For this project, a reef knot bracelet, 2 pieces of 3mm round wire, 190 millimeters long. I don't care what you cut them with as long as you file the ends flat. Number 2 cut flat hand file, brace it against your bench. Do all 4 ends. Now this should be soft enough you can bend with your fingers. Bend it into a rough oval, and we want the ends to fit perfectly. If you can't bend this with your fingers, anneal it. Now we want as perfect a fit as possible. If it's not a perfect fit, you can saw down through, just holding both ends so that they're exactly the same, matching each other. One time down through with your saw, your jeweler's saw, should get it so that it's acceptable. Place your big jump ring on your charcoal block, and I've found that if I position it this way, using my third hand, it is quite easier to solder this way than just laying on its own, because if it doesn't quite match, as I'm soldering, I can use my solder pick to even up the ends. So a little bit of flux on the end, and I would put about 3 pieces of solder on my soldering pick. You can rest the solder on your piece if you want, but I've found that oftentimes you overheat the solder before it's ready to flow. So this way, heat the pick and melt the solder onto it. Keep the piece brushing back and forth until the flux goes clear, and then place the solder. At that point, the solder should flow almost immediately. So there, my flux is clear, and the solder flowed. That's what we want. Yep. Quench this in water and do the next one, and then pickle them both and we'll shape them. Once the pieces are pickled, neutralized, rinsed, and then dried, always dry them. Tidy up your solder join now, and I've found that it's easier if you make this slightly rounded and just follow the curve. And then what you can do is you can use the split mandrel on the inside. So you want this as nice as you can make it, invisible solder join, both of them. So once you have your joints tidied up, what you want to do is make this into a long oval with that join a bit off to the side. So there's my join, and I want to make the end of the oval up here. You should be able to just squeeze it in your fingers. If not, you can use your rawhide hammer on the bench in the noise room. So a really long oval with the join towards the end but off to the side. Now at this point, we've got our 2 long ovals. the end closest to the solder joint we want to make smaller than the other end. So just use your rawhide hammer on the bench in the noise room, like that, and then we're going to put a slight curve in it. Yeah, so both of those that way. Now the reason we've done that is so that we can put them together, so the small end to the big end, and you just fit the two of them through. Now I would suggest a little bit of beeswax on the inside of these two loops because we're going to pull it really hard. Okay, we're ready to pull, but we're going to use 2 ring mandrels, so you're going to have to open these ends so that they just fit over the ring mandrel. And you can do that many ways. One way is just to stick a set of rounded pliers in, and you can just open the pliers and twist a little. It can be anything really, as long as it does that. So the ring mandrel just needs to fit in the end. Now, I've put an eye bolt on the workbench so that I could just slide a ring mandrel in and it will hold it, because we want to loop our piece onto here, and we're going to use another ring mandrel and put it in the far end, and we're just going to hit it with our rawhide hammer. Now, as we're working this, it'll probably work harden it, in which case anneal it and do it again. But you can see that it's coming into shape, and you can also see why we've put our solder here. It's so we don't have it in the knot itself. So I've re-annealed this, but slide it apart, put a little more beeswax on it, back on the ring mandrel, and this should be the final time you need to do this. So that's tight enough, and I'll show you what to do next. We want to put one little bit of solder right here. We're going to hang this on our third hand. If we don't solder this, it's loose like this. So just one little bit of solder to hold it in place. And I suspend it on my third hand. To hold it straight up and down, I'll just flux it there. There. Let me zoom in. So I'll just flux this underneath the head of the knot. I've got 2 little bits of solder on the charcoal block, which I'm going to pick up with my pick. So just heat the area where the knot and the 2 wires come together. When the flux goes clear, place your solder. This is a fairly large amount of metal, so crank the heat up. So there it's flowed. Quench it, pickle it, and then we'll form it. Quench it in water. Once you've pickled it and dried it off, you can form it around a bracelet mandrel. But oftentimes I find if I just use a ring mandrel and the rawhide hammer, I can form the end of the cuff the way I want it, and it doesn't change the knot. So it's up to you, but you can see it's quite easy to form this just by tapping it around a ring mandrel. And once you've got it all finished and you've checked it out and make sure that you've taken any little marks off, you can polish this one up on Tripoli. I usually just chuck it in the tumbler. So, a reef knot bracelet.